Well, the creative process is we both we start with a sort of a general idea of a in this case, a subject that we wanted to explore, and then we start knocking ideas back and forth about how best to do it.
Before there's words, before there's music, there's the story. And if the story is strong, I think of it as like a well. If the story is really rich and deep, then there's room to mine for precious stuff in there. So first of all, we decide on which mine we're going to. What is the story? Then Gene goes in and he digs around. He goes, look what I found, and look what I found. And I go, oh, wow, that really dazzles me. And this doesn't really dazzle me, but this really inspires me. And then he gets going with that, and then I go in the mine, and I go, this really inspires me. And when we compare notes and we find a journey that inspires both of us.
The role of a librettist is obviously just write the text that's to be sung, but it's more than that. It's to create this sort of dramatic structure.
We get Gene's libretto first. So you read through the libretto, and you get the story, you get the words.
And then it just, I guess it enters my head and heart, and there's a moment of clarity when I start writing, and it's just very clear. I know, well, yep, that's how that goes.
It's a story about Krystyna Zawolska, who escaped from the Warsaw Ghetto, joined the Polish resistance, was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau as political prisoner, and wrote daring poems, and it kept her alive. And the inmates made up songs to these poems.
She wrote when she was unhappy, she wrote when she was happy. That was her joy.
So I told Jake the story, and I said, so how about setting some music to these poems? Because we do have the poems. And when I explained the story to him about how she escaped from the ghetto and all these incredible decisions she made, he and Gene decided it was too simple just to set the songs to music. What he really wanted to do was to explore the moral decisions she made and what it was like to be a survivor and to deal with the question of survival.
There's the line, a survivor is not a hero. A survivor is a survivor.
It doesn't necessarily mean doing something heroic. Very often we pin a huge burden on survivors by calling them heroes. And sometimes you don't do very heroic things to survive, you just survive.
The most touching line in the opera, well, there's so many, but when the survivor sings, there are no words. There are no words.
She had to follow orders and beat people and hit them and get them in line, and it's not something that she's proud of. It's something she's clearly grappled with.
She has to live with those memories. She has to live with the things that she did to survive and ultimately escape.
The overall theme is embracing your past and growing from it, learning from it, sharing it, not suppressing it or keeping it away because it's too hard or it's too tough.
It's transformative. It really is. And that's how Jake's music is and Gene's words. I feel like they do have the power to really make you feel and think and be moved, which is so important. That's what we need. That's what art is for.
I think when you're tackling these large subjects, I think the idea to some extent is to keep it small. Is to keep it just, I'm not trying to write about the Holocaust. I'm trying to write about a woman who went through the Holocaust, who gets up in the middle of the night and has been asked by a writer to comment on her experiences, and she needs to figure out how she's going to comment and what she cares to share and what is too painful to share.
That's the most gratifying part for me, is to tell stories, to tell these stories of these people that didn't really have a voice. And I think that's our job as artists, to give people a voice that aren't given a voice.
So much is slipping away.
The second act really is about a man in his 80s who's also wanted to shut out his past because of the painful times that he had.
This person that I'm portraying was a real person, Gad Beck.
So you want to honor him.
You will always be 19 and beautiful, won't you?
And he's haunted one night by the 19-year-old lover that he had, the ghost of the 19-year-old lover he had in Berlin just before the war came out, Manfred Levin.
A silent, obedient.
And Gene culled through all the material. We found Manfred Levin's journal. And through that, we put this story together based on true events. And that became For a Look or a Touch, which is now the second act of this opera.
In Act 2, I'm actually visiting my lover who survived the Holocaust, and I did not. And so it's this, for me, I mean, I'm not sure if this is exactly what they were thinking of when they did it, but for me, when I look at myself through that third eye on stage, it almost seems as if, you know, I'm there to as someone to help Gad cross over. You know, someone to help him come to terms with this incredibly traumatic time in their life.
Gad has tried only to forget, and Manfred, as a young man and a ghost, only wants to be remembered and to celebrate what happened, not push it away.
We never said goodbye!
And it's his mission that on this haunted night to share stories with Gad Beck and get him to embrace and remember and therefore be free.
I knew that something was forever broken.
This guy's really angry, you know, and it makes sense to me, but when I started out, I didn't get it. It was very kind of sentimental and sweet. It's not. He's a very angry man. And through the process, the painful process of being forced to confront and remember his past, he comes to a much healthier, I think, a much more accepting of himself and, you know, forgiving of himself.
At times in this piece, you don't want to look. Do you know? And you just saw some of it. You don't want to look because it's so intimate.
It challenges people to think, and it challenges them to engage with history and memory in ways that they're unaccustomed. And I think perhaps one thing that I feel we're getting more successful at is people realize when they come to these concerts, we're going to pose questions and not give easy answers.
The real question is, why make it into an opera? What can music do that can illuminate this particular subject in a special way?
The music it's gorgeous. It touches your heart, it's haunting.
Incredible, incredible. Just so honest. The way Jake writes for the voice is so amazingly perfect. We're able to express what we need to express because the music is written so beautifully. So, yeah, it's just, oh my God. He's amazing, but we all know that. So that's why we're all here. Because of Jake.
I wouldn't avoid it, it really works.
Okay, I know. So it's always a wonderful challenge, something that I hold very close to my heart in discovering the story through music, and especially in new music like this, you know, bringing the composer and librettist intentions to life. I cherish that.
To be able to sing a piece for the first time, to be part of creating it, is such a privilege, and it's a rare privilege. And that's, I think, the greatest honor for me, is to be a part of the team that creates a work for the first time. And there's always a feeling of not knowing how it will go across. There's a little bit of terror with it, especially in the short rehearsal process, where you think, how is this going to come across? What will people think? Will they like it? How successful will we be living up to our expectations and others' expectations? And then you just do it.
It's what we live for, to create a new piece. There's no, you know, when you sing Marriage of Figaro, there's thousands of people that have done it before you. Everyone comes to the theater with expectations. Oh, the last time I saw Marriage of Figaro, it was in Salzburg, or, oh, you know, whatever. But when people come to see something like this, it's just, they're an open book. And so you really get to create something new. And that is just so exciting. I mean, it's for me personally, it's what I live for.
Really are looking for magical moments of singing, where the voice can communicate sort of the emotion of the moment and the story.
I mean, you die, lives in you, and that's what happens with the character. All those years later, those melodies are still within her, and so that's Jake's job, is to write a melody that could truly live for decades in someone's heart and head. And
I mean, there's brains in it, but a lot of music to me, is primarily brain music, and and eventually gets down here. But this, gets there very quickly.
So he's always telling the story with his music. I cannot imagine the world without the music of Jake Heggie.
When they realize that's what she's going to do.
When I get Jake's music, I'm always amazed at kind of the depth that he forces you to go to. And it's not like you have to kind of come up with a way to emotionally infuse something in the music. It's usually the opposite. Jake is going, here, see if you can get to here. See if you can take this and run with it, which is great. It makes him, it's why he's, I'm going to say, the best operatic, composer out there today.
The two of them probe emotions deeply, and they do it with unflinching honesty. And so I feel incredibly grateful that I've had the privilege to work with these guys. And they're so incredibly modest, but this is the hottest creative team in opera today.
She's a real visionary, a real leader. She's not happy just to sit in a place. She's always exploring and pushing and interested in different aspects. Like when Jean and I talked about doing a piece about Krystyna Zawolska, what we really wanted to explore was the nature of survival and it being heroic or non-heroic. And Minna loved that idea, Let's explore touchy subjects. Let's explore human realities. Let's make the more real you make these stories and the more human, the more you bring people into the story. Otherwise, it feels at a distance.
It's been a gift for me and for Jake to be able to work with her and these spectacular singers and these musicians. I mean, one of the great joys of coming here is to see these fantastic instrumentalists who we've worked with year after year when we come back here, and they're the best.
I want to embrace music that I love, that I feel like I can inhabit, that is very clear and yet leaves room for me to say something on my own.
The thing about Jake is he's a real storyteller. I mean, he's really a person who is a wonderful composer, but his eye is on how can we communicate the story, how can we connect an audience, and also to do it through the glory of the human voice.
I love being in his world, the world he creates, just like I love being in Puccini's world and Mozart's world. It's such an iconic place. When you're in Jake's music, when you're in Puccini's music, when you're in Verdi's music, you know that you're in them. Jake has this gift to just be so amazingly honest in the way that he constructs a phrase, he constructs a scene, he constructs an opera.
What's great about when Jake and Jean collaborate, they do such a fantastic job of speaking to the powerful emotions that happen. Really, the only way to really do these things is to get out of the way and just kind of take yourself out of it and let the music and the words do the work. And if you try to get too manhandly, you try to do too much, it doesn't work. You just this music is so beautiful and so lyrical and so, it's difficult music, but it's really easy to sing, and the words flow because they're really good at what they do.
I know that I'm sort of like a vessel. We're all vessels, I tell this when I work with when I talk to young singers, especially. It's like we all breathe in and we have to breathe out. We have to let it go. We take in water, we take in food. We have to let it go, You have to let love pass through. You have to love, and so for some reason, this passes through me and I can't hold on to it. It's not good for me to hold on to it. I have to let it go. And so it feels like something that I just must do. And what inspires me to want to work at my best level are working with great artists, great colleagues, wonderful writers, a wonderful story with vivid characters, and an operatic transformational journey. And if those elements are in place, then my imagination gets rolling.
Inexplicable.
And I want to give music to singers and performers that empowers them, that they don't feel like they're just working at it all the time, that they can master it and then transform it into something very powerful and meaningful for the audience.